Hey boys and girls, Dr. Berry here. I know I'm a little late. I was putting out a fire, so to speak. I was trying to get a podcast in before this started, and it wound up going long. If you're watching this on the replay, feel free to leave your question in the comments, and either Carrie or I or Nisha will answer your comment. I'm going to try to get Carrie Brown in here. There she is. We're going to talk about some good stuff. Hey, Amanda. Hey, Vicki. Hey, Melissa. Sorry I'm late. Please forgive me. There she is.
We did it.
Yes.
First time.
Yes, very nice. I don't know. Knock on wood.
All right, let me just turn all the things up here. There we go.
Yes. It's good to see you again. How have you been? How's Jenny?
Jenny's a bee.
I hear you. I hear you. You'll have to tell everybody who Jenny is.
Jenny is, I have Lyme disease, and I named it Jenny. And Jenny's a bee. And I can't wait for September 4th when we begin to, we've given Jenny her eviction notice, but what do they call them? The bailiffs are turning up on September 4th.
Yes, good. I know you can't wait for that. So what's been going on with you since last time we talked?
Well, I was supposed to be in Florida right now. I was going down to spend 10 days with the amazing Danny Vega and his family.
Yes.
But sadly, and I think a lot of people know that his little boy Dean had a terrible accident with a truck. And of course, then I have Jenny to contend with. And what Danny and I, one of the things Danny and I are going to do when I'm down in Florida with them is we're going to do some videos at the gym. And Jenny is making it so that they would not be good videos right now, because I got about as much energy as a bowl of cold rice pudding. Mm-hmm. So we decided that because of Jenny, and also to give Dean and Desmond and Danny and Maura some more time to kind of regroup as a family after the accident, that we would postpone that to October. So I suddenly had like 10 days in my calendar with nothing in it. So I've been madly like just getting all the things done, all the, admin and getting the last bit of the new kitchen sorted out. And I've just been like using that time to really get up to date. I did record a podcast with Fahad from Keto Geek.
Yes.
That was super cool. And I also recorded with the amazing Ali Miller and Becky Yu.
Very nice.
So that was super cool too. So
absolutely. So what are we going to talk about this evening, the real Carrie Brown?
We are going to talk about Keto Treats.
Excellent. So you guys, if you know anybody who's been thinking about keto, thinking about trying keto, wondering about Keto Treats and that sort of thing, please share this on your Facebook page. You have our permission to share this in your keto group, your low carb group, or even your paleo group if you must. We're happy for you to share, because it helps us to help more people. And so share away. And if you do share this, type share it in the comments so that we can thank you. And we're going to be talking about Keto Treats tonight, and every single thing you need to know about Keto Treats. Yeah, Mark said carnivore treats. That's bacon. He's exactly right. I love it. Oh no, Carrie's frozen. No, please no. She touched something. I see her touching it. Oh, there she is.
Okay. Okay. My earbuds were not. So not only were you coming out of my phone and not here, but it was muffled because I got these in.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
So we did
with it, Carrie Brown.
We did way better technologically than we've done previously, but it still wasn't perfect. So next week it's going to be perfect.
Exactly.
So when I was thinking about, so when Dr. Berry was here with Nisha, and they stayed with me. Dr. Berry and I brainstormed an enormous list of things that would be great topics for us to do together, to talk about kind of topics that were both food, like kitchen topics, which is my area of expertise, and also the kind of the medical aspect. And so when Dr. Berry, and I don't really know why, but when Dr. Berry said to me today, okay, what are we talking about? And I've been thinking a lot about keto treats, and most specifically, I was thinking about the almond flour, the floury, the carbagey things, or the things that we used to eat. So that kind of realm. So if we have time, we can talk about all the keto treats, but I was thinking specifically of things that are typically doughy. That's
Yes.
what I was kind of thinking. So cakes and cookies and pizza and breads and all of those kind of things. So that's what I wanted to focus on specifically.
Yes, let's do it. I love it.
So I find we have a very large Facebook group, the Keto Evangelist Kitchen, and all we do is food. That's all we do in there. We don't talk about ingrained toenails being the result of keto, or do my kidneys work, or any of that, or success stories. We just focus on the food, and it's always the case that the posts that get the most attention are always the cakes, the cookies, the floury desserts, the pizzas, the pizza pockets, all of that, and the bread. That is just what blows everything up. So I wanted to ask Dr. Berry, should we be eating keto treats?
Yeah,
when it comes to nut flours, is that something we should be eating?
That's a great question. So many people, when they come to the ketogenic way of eating, they're like, oh wait, there's almond flour, and I can make baked goods, and so I can still kind of eat my standard American diet, but with better quality ingredients. And so a lot of people do well on that for a while, but almost everyone, after a while, they stall if they're doing a lot of baked, doughy, nut flour treats or baked goods or any of that kind of stuff. You know, you can make bread out of almond flour. You can make pies, cakes, cookies. You can make all that stuff. But you guys got to remember, there are carbs in almonds, right? There are carbs in any of the nuts. And if you eat a handful of almonds, then that's probably fine for almost everybody. But if you eat a handful of nut flour, again, that's been processed. And so even though it's obviously better than wheat flour, but it's probably not a good idea to eat that very often, or to eat too much of that for various reasons. So tell me your experience with nut flours, almond flours, Carrie.
So I think, and I think it is true that a lot of people stall if they eat too many of the nut flour things. And I also think that it's incredibly easy to overeat, because especially if you find there's a lot, and you'll know this, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know when I say there's a lot of recipes out there that are horrible. Yes. And that don't work, that just don't work, and you end up wasting a lot of money on pretty expensive ingredients and get fails. But of the recipes out there in this kind of genre that are good, they are, for example, my sour cream and chive, my sour cream and chive scones are the #1 most popular recipe on my blog. They are absolutely delicious. And even it's difficult to just eat one. And it's incredibly easy to overeat the nut flour things.
Yes.
So, and that can make it difficult. And I do find that people in our group often find that unless they're really careful about moderation, they can easily overeat them. And when they do that, they stall. So, but I want to be clear that we're not saying that keto treats are bad.
That's right.
And we're not saying that you shouldn't have them.
That's right.
But I'm saying, and I think Dr. Berry is going to agree with me, that we shouldn't base our meal plans around them. We shouldn't be continually, daily eating cakes, keto cookies, pizza, fathead dough. These should be treats. They shouldn't form the basis of what we're eating.
Yes.
They should still be treated as treats.
Yes.
Would you agree, Dr.
I
Berry?
totally agree. And like I said earlier, when you first come to this way of eating, if you've got a ton of weight to lose, figuratively speaking, then you'll probably do fine for a good leg of your journey eating nut flour products, right? But at some point you're going to stall and you're not going to lose anymore if you're having a baked good with every meal, because some people are like, the heavens opened and the knowledge came down that they could still have baked goods every meal because it's almond flour or it's coconut flour or it's, cashew flour. But the problem with that is that's no longer a whole real food. That's now a processed food. And when you make it into a baked good, that makes it hyper palatable, which means it tastes way better than any just regular whole food is ever going to taste. And then you put sweetener that makes it even more palatable. And so you wind up with this thing that can lead to its own kind of little addiction. And so if you're making good progress on your keto journey and you're eating lots of baked goods with almond flour and coconut flour, I would say keep doing what you're doing. But when you stall, realize that's probably the thing that's doing it. And you need to minimize that and turn it into what it should have been all along, which is an occasional treat for a special occasion, or once a week. On the weekend, I'll have whatever your favorite baked keto good is. But the whole point of this diet is to eat real whole foods, just like our ancestors would have done 50,000 years ago. That's what we're trying to do. That's why our DNA responds so beautifully to this diet, is because it knows what to do with it. But when you start grinding up stuff and processing stuff and making it ultra processed, that moves it away from a whole natural food, and it becomes kind of a processed food. Now, it's still better than wheat flour. It's still better than Bisquick. It's better than all that stuff. Yes, absolutely. But at some point, you may find on your keto journey, you can't eat that stuff every day anymore, or your weight loss just stops.
There is, and again, I do not want anyone to take away the message that we're saying you can't have keto treats or they're bad for you or you shouldn't have them or whatever. We're just saying be aware that at some point they may cause you to stall, and they shouldn't form the basis of your daily meals. They should be a treat. But they are good. They are infinitely better than where you came from.
Yes.
But they are easy to overeat. And while we don't count calories, because keto's all about the form the calories come in, not actually the calories themselves, you can very easily eat a huge amount of calories when you're eating things made with nut flours, because they're incredibly calorically dense, and so you can easily overeat. But here's the good part. The great thing about Keto Treats is that they enable a lot of people to stay on it, to stay on keto, or to get on keto. You might find that you have a ton of loved ones, friends, family, colleagues who are just like, they've heard that keto is like, no sugar, no flour. And they're like, oh my goodness, if I can't have pizza, if I can't have, biscuits, if I can't have any of my favorite things, I know there's no way I can do it. So Keto Treats can initially bridge that gap. They can help you to share keto and say, hey, look, try this. And I've actually had people argue with me that some of the Keto Treats I've made have no wheat and no sugar. They've stood there and said, there's wheat in this. I don't believe there's not wheat in this. And I'm going, I made it. Like, I know what's in it. So Keto Treats can be absolutely fantastic for helping you bring people to keto. they can be fantastic for those moments, especially if you're new, when you're like, I still have sugar cravings, or I still have carb cravings, or I live in a house with people who are eating the regular carby versions, and I need to like bridge that gap emotionally. And so keto treats can be super, super handy, particularly when you're starting out, because you learn that you don't have to give up all the things. Because if you find a really good recipe for a keto treat, it can be almost literally life-saving, that it will help you stay on plan, or it'll help your family stay on plan, because they've got this delicious thing that gives them the same sense of comfort that they used to get from garbage. Now they can get it from keto, as long as you're all aware that that's not what you should be building your daily meals around. So, just like when you were on the Stand America diet, you should never have eaten 6 Krispy Kremes. Like you shouldn't eat 6 biscuits. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I've seen several comments go by saying that's my, I have to have my almond bread or my almond whatever, or I'll go crazy. I can't do keto without that. And if that is your gateway substance to get you into keto and to keep you in keto, then yeah, that's fine. I don't think, I agree with Carrie. I don't think they're bad. I just think they're less good than what we could be doing, right? Because if you're eating real whole food, then that's what your DNA wants. That's what your body needs. But if you're eating too many highly processed nut flours, there's just, almonds have carbs. There's no doubt about that. But if you eat a handful of almonds that you have to chew up and then chemically digest, you expend so much energy digesting and chewing, you kind of cancel the carbs out, right? But if you eat that same amount of nut flour, all the chewing's been done. It's almost like it's been pre-digested for you. So you just get the full slam of the carbs. And so we're not saying don't have keto bread or keto pancakes or any of that stuff, but just realize that it's a tool. Fire's a tool. If you misuse fire, you'll get burned, right? And so if you misuse the keto treats and the nut flours, you'll get burned. You'll stall out. You might even have some inflammation if you eat them too often. But if you use them as a tool, especially when you're first starting, I think they're very helpful for getting you into this way of eating. And then you can slowly transition to eating whole foods. And it's not such an abrupt transition. And then a lot of people, they eat all the nut flours until they stall out, and then they realize, oh, it's time to stop that.
The other thing that keto treats can be an absolute godsend for are the holidays. So birthdays, celebrations, particularly if in America, Thanksgiving, in England and Europe and Australia, maybe Christmas more. But the holidays can be absolutely awful especially if you're the only keto one, or, Americans are such traditionalists that not having a traditional Thanksgiving is honestly really, really hard for people. So that you can recreate, if you find good recipes, you can recreate your holidays, but of the keto version is an absolute godsend for people. So, but we're not, what we're saying is, don't eat like it's Thanksgiving all the time.
Right.
Whether you're keto or not, don't eat like it's Thanksgiving all the time. And what I would suggest is you still want your focus to be the proteins and the healthy whole food fats, with the treat on the side or the treat for dessert, not here's the treat and I'll add a bit of something else on the side. So have your bacon and eggs and have a biscuit on the side. Don't make eat the bacon and eggs first and then top it off with the biscuit, not like eat all the biscuits.
Yeah, I totally agree. Keto biscuit, just to
Right,
clarify.
right, 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 right. Keto
Right.
biscuits, yes.
And I think there's a place for when people are first coming to keto. I think there's a place for keto treats as a way of transitioning. I think there's a place for fat bombs and having them in the fridge. If you're still a carb craver, if you haven't broken that habit yet, I would much prefer you grab a fat bomb or a keto cookie or a keto biscuit than to grab some kind of carby crap, some kind of garbage, and ruin your diet and have to start over the next day. I would much prefer you eat a fat bomb or two than to mess up and eat some stupid carby snack that the kids have in the fridge that you should have never touched. But since you didn't have that keto or keto-ish option, you wound up just eating something stupid. And so I think there's a definite place for people if they live in a mixed household where there's some keto and some not keto. I think it's very wise probably to have some keto cookies or a keto cake or some keto bread, just in case you get that craving. You can use that as a tool so you don't really mess up your diet. But once your entire household is keto, once you've been keto for a while, I think that it should be kind of natural for the keto snacks to just kind of dissipate, and they become a birthday thing or a Christmas or a Thanksgiving or an anniversary thing. And otherwise, on the average given day, you just eat whole food.
I absolutely agree. And also for the girls, just, maybe once a month, there's a good time to have a couple of extra keto treats. So, and Dr. Berry may not be a girl, but I'm sure he's spoken to a lot of girls with that problem.
Yeah, I know a girl named Nisha Berry, and yeah, about once a month, she needs a keto snack. Yup. Yeah, about once a month.
So I think for me, if you're going to take away one thing from this, it's not that treats are bad. That's not what we're saying. I think the most important thing that I would like you to remember is that keto treats are infinitely better than the original carb version. So if that's your choice, we're like, eat the keto treats.
Yep.
Eat all the keto treats. If that's the choice you're faced with, if your brain or your body's driving you mad, if that's the choice, absolutely go with the keto treats.
Yep.
But when you're not in that state, then make your proteins and your healthy whole food fats the focus, and then add a biscuit or add a waffle or have a dessert afterwards, but don't make the keto treats the focus. And just be aware that if you're stalled, just if the keto treats, if the nut flours are something that you're eating a lot of when you're stalling, that might be one of the things that you could try, just going nut free for a month and see if things change. If they don't, then you have to go on to the next thing and figure out, okay, so it wasn't nuts that were stalling me, what else could it be? But I think nuts is a good place to start on an experiment if you're stalling.
Yeah.
But I think as Dr. Berry said, you can eat, like my sour cream and chive scones biscuits, I could eat 4, like right now, if I had any. I couldn't eat that amount of whole almonds. So
exactly.
So you can, or I wouldn't eat that. I'd get satiated on the whole almonds, but I don't on the. So just be aware. Try and be more aware of just how many nuts you're eating when you're chowing down on the keto nut treats.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of upside to keto treats, a lot.
Yes.
But there can also be some downsides, and you just have to, as with everything keto, you have to be aware, and you have to listen to your body, and you have to see what's happening.
Absolutely. And I can tell you from personal experience, Carrie, when I was first getting into keto, I discovered 90-second bread, which is made with almond flour and coconut flour. And Nisha and I, we played with that recipe for months until we got it where you could make it in the microwave and gently, carefully slice it, put it in the toaster, and have a pretty darn close imitation of an English muffin. And during that part of my keto, let me tell you, I ate the hell out of 90-second bread. Oh my God, I ate so many of those. Right. And I didn't have that. You know how when you eat too much wheat, you're sleepy and tired. And I didn't have that feeling. And I was elated that I had found this thing that I could wolf down because I'm a big eater. Carrie can tell you that because I've eaten at her table before. But
I don't. So people, you never get this impression from watching Dr. Ken on a video. Dr. Ken he's like this tall. He's not like, I know he looks normal on a video. He's like, I got neck strain when he was here because he is, I don't know how tall, you 6'4"?
Yeah.
You're at least 6'4". He's like super, super tall. So Dr. Berry, and he scared my cat Zebedee because he was so big, not fat, just really imposing figure. So yes, big appetite.
Now, Carrie, if I tried to eat 90-second bread like that now, it would totally stall me, and I might even start to gain weight now. But that was a very important part of my journey as I was learning about keto and continuing to do my research, and you know what I'm saying, trying to kind of go to the next level. But I couldn't maintain my weight that I'm at now, that you saw me at, if I went back to eating 90-second bread and fat bombs all the time. But Nisha and I both definitely use those as transitional tools to kind of get used to keto and to figure out what we could and couldn't do. There's probably some people out there who their entire life they could eat keto bread and fat bombs and keto snacks and do just fine. And more power to you if you're that person. But definitely most people need to use them as a transitional tool when they're first coming to keto. But then as you continue to basically grow up in keto, you'll start to put aside those things as occasional treats because you'll realize at some point they stall you out or they inflame you a little bit, or they're just too filling. They're too hyper palatable, because what we're trying to do is retrain our palate to enjoy the foods that our ancestors ate 50,000 years ago. And I can guarantee you they did not have fat snacks, lemon cookies, even though they are very tasty. They didn't have that, right? And so I could probably eat 20 of those fat snacks cookies back to back to back with a big glass of heavy cream. But that's not good for me. That's hyper palatable. That's too much nutrition all at once. It's not a varied nutrition. It's just almond flour, right? Or it's just coconut flour. You don't want to eat too much of any one thing like that. And so now in my keto journey, I would never sit down and eat that many pieces of 90-second bread or that many fats. I just don't eat any of that anymore, because to go to the level I want to go to of my health, I can't eat that stuff anymore, even though it played a vital role early in my keto career.
Right. So again, just because you don't see Dr. Berry and I posting pictures of our food that include all of those things doesn't mean you can't have them. That's right. At an appropriate time. It doesn't mean they're bad. It just means they're not the focus of what we eat.
Right.
And we did, for those of you who joined us for our live that we did last week on stigma, I think this is another thing. This is another very inflammatory, but not in the health sense, area, because a lot of people can be kind of keto policey about keto treats, and can jump all over people and say, you shouldn't be eating keto treats, or if you're eating nut flours, you're not keto, or you're eating too much fat, or you're blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Please, nobody ever say that stuff. Please don't say that stuff to other people.
Right. And so again, I think Brian and we did a podcast on this a long time ago when we first started out. So it was about 18 months ago, because there are some people who will try and shame you into not eating your keto treats. They say, like, you shouldn't be eating keto treats. It's not whole food. You're just, why would you come to keto if you're just going to recreate all the garbage that got you to where you are? If you keep eating keto biscuits, you're just going to end up as fat as you were when you had proper, flour biscuits, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
But you have to, build your own wall of defense against that kind of thing, because as we've said, no, we don't think that you should make them the focus of your meals, but they're a brilliant tool for helping other people get onto keto. They're a brilliant tool for bridging the emotional or cravings or the monthly visitor. They're a brilliant tool for holidays. There's a lot of goodness. There's a lot of upside to Keto Treats. So just be aware that just if people are telling you that, if people are just being mean and telling you shouldn't eat them and tell them that I'm not keto and all of that, just walk away.
Yeah, absolutely. There are many keto groups on Facebook. There are many keto pages. If you're in a group and they're bullying and being keto Nazis and keto police, find another group. There's hundreds of groups, and there are very supportive groups like Carrie's group, like my page, like our private Patreon group. We don't do that. We don't tolerate bullying and shaming and stuff. None of that's necessary. We don't need any of that. Because if anybody says, oh, if you eat keto treats, you'll get just as fat as if you were eating the old kind of treats, that's ridiculous on its face, right?
Right.
That's dumb to start with. You need to stop listening to that person immediately.
Right.
But there's just no reason for people to be abrasive and bossy in this community, because we're all in this together. We're all learning as we go. We're all walking the same journey together. We can do it hand in hand, or we can do it slapping each other all the way. I'd prefer not to be fighting the entire way. I think we can all get along and either agree or agree to disagree, but never should you be shaming or bossing or policing somebody.
Right. So if people do that to you over your keto treats, just walk away. Don't even try and defend it. Just, it's the same as, I feel great when eating this way. They can't argue with that. They can't argue with, I feel great.
Yeah,
right?
I love that strategy.
They can't.
That's so good.
So, I plus the other thing that you'll probably hear me say on every single live that Dr. Bear and I do together is we're all different. We're all unique, and not everybody responds physiologically in the same way as everybody else when they eat large quantities of nut flour, right, Dr. Berry? I mean,
exactly.
Some people, I mean, everybody's different. Some people really can't tolerate more than half a biscuit at once. Other people can tolerate a ton.
Yeah.
Should they do that? Well, but that's something that you all got to work out for yourselves.
Exactly right. And so, but just like me, for example, there was one point in my keto journey, I could wear the almond flour out. And I ate so many nuts and seeds when I was first coming to this way of eating, because I used to love to eat granola cereal, right? And all the different kind of breakfast cereals with milk. But then when I was keto, I obviously couldn't do that anymore. So I started having these bowls of all kinds of different nuts and seeds with heavy cream. And I ate a lot of that. And it worked for me for a good year and a half, 2 years. But then at some point I stalled because it was just too many carbs and in the heavy cream, and too many carbs in the nuts. And so I had to start to wean that down, or I would have been stuck right there. And so if you're happy where you're at, guys, if you're watching, then keep doing what you're doing. But if you're not happy with where you are, then you got to change what you're doing. And one of the things you could change is to slowly start to cut back on the keto treats and the nut flours, and see if you won't start to move again towards whatever your goal happens to be.
Something else I just thought of is be aware that not all nuts are the same.
Oh, yeah.
And so, for example, cashews and pistachios, we're not saying don't eat them, but so nuts are on a continuum.
Right.
And macadamias and peely nuts and Brazil nuts are down the low carb end, and almonds are kind of in the middle. Cashews and pistachios are up the high carb end.
Yeah.
So
my two favorites.
Of course. So you're going to probably want to eat, we're not saying don't eat cashews and pistachios. We're just saying you probably want to eat less and less often, because they are down the carbier end. So don't just think that all nuts are equal, and because they're not. there's as a continuum. And as I say, macadamias, pili nuts, Brazils, walnuts, pine nuts are down the lower carb end, and almonds in the middle, cashews and pistachios up the higher carb end. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we haven't talked much about cooking with nut flours, and this isn't going to turn into a cooking class, but a lot of people come in the kitchen group, in the Keto Evangelist Kitchen Facebook group, they're very new, and they'll come and they'll post a recipe of some garbage, and they'll say, so can I just switch out the flour for almond flour one-on-one? Or they'll say, this recipe is made with almond flour, but I'm allergic to almonds, or my son's allergic to almonds. Can I just switch it out for coconut flour? And no. So if you're really new and you haven't like dabbled in the nut flours, you absolutely cannot just switch things out. Particularly coconut is a completely different beast to almond flour. Coconut flour is incredibly absorbs a ton of liquid, and it will, if you just switch it out willy-nilly, you're gonna have a lot of fails. And one of the things I hate about bad recipes is that people end up wasting a lot of time and a lot of expensive ingredients, and then they end up thinking that they're the problem, that they just can't cook or they can't do this. And I don't believe that's true at all. I believe if you have the right recipe, you can make everything perfectly. I don't think the problem's your inability to cook. It's typically the recipe that doesn't actually work. A lot of recipes online just don't work. And if you're not aware of that, then you could end up spending a lot of money and a lot of time and end up feeling like you can't cook. So when it comes to nut flours, I highly recommend that you ask for an already keto-fied version. So if you want a biscuit recipe, don't take a regular flour recipe and say, can I, and try and keto-fy it, or just try and switch out almond flour for regular flour. Go and get my sour cream and chive biscuit recipe, because we know it works. It works perfectly. Do that rather than trying to keto-fy your garbage yourself. Find a good recipe that other people tell you works. And then also, as I say, coconut and almond flour, totally not interchangeable. You'll need, for coconut flour, you'll need less, and you'll also need to up the liquid content a lot. But depending on the recipe, there's no standard like template for how recipes work with nut flours like there is for ratios of flour to liquid in the standard American diet world. There's no like standard guide for this much of this and this much of that. The recipes are really trial and error. So you really want to focus on, unless creating stuff and playing with stuff and not minding wasting stuff is your jam, then hey, go for it. But for most people, it's not. They just want, a good biscuit. So I highly recommend you go out and find a good biscuit recipe rather than trying to figure out how to do that yourself, because there are no basic formulas that like there are for the regular flour and sugar recipes, if that made sense.
It makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. So what else, Carrie Brown? I'm writing down questions as we go. We're going to take a few questions here in a minute.
So just one fun little insert is, I think a lot of you probably know Mary Roberts because she's all over the place. She's actually one of the Keto Evangelist coaches, and she admins a lot in our groups. And she was here, and she said, she reminded me that Brian Williamson, who is my podcast partner, Brian is also really, really tall. And so I never refer to him as Brian. I always refer to him as the really tall Texan. And so Mary wants to know if you have now become the really tall Tennessean.
I accept that.
So that's your new name now, but it doesn't roll off the tongue quite like Texan.
No, it doesn't. There's an extra syllable or two. I know.
So I might have to come up with a new nickname for you.
Please work on that. I'm excited to hear what it's going to be. I'm excited to hear. So I've seen a couple of questions scroll by. Let's talk about a few questions, Carrie, and then we'll wrap it up and let these people go in their kitchen and experiment with some keto recipes.
Okay.
All right. So one lady said that her husband's doing great on keto and he's lost down to his goal, but he doesn't want to keep losing weight. What should he do now? And so what would you say to that?
I would say eat more.
Yeah, I would say don't worry about it, because in reality, the ketogenic diet is not a weight loss diet. And I know that that confuses people when I say that. So let me explain. What the ketogenic diet does is it's going to move you towards your ideal body weight. That's what it does. And so in America, that usually means, in the US, that means you're going to lose weight on it, right? But if you're severely underweight, I've seen people gain weight, because I often, I've had a few couples who come to the clinic to talk about keto, and the wife will be very, very overweight and the husband will be super, super slim. And she'll say, well, I want him to do this with me, but I was afraid he would lose more weight. But he's actually gained 5 pounds and I've lost 45 pounds. And so think of the ketogenic way of eating as a weight optimization diet. So if you're underweight, it's going to help you gain. If you're overweight, it's going to help you lose. And so your husband can keep right on eating keto if he wants to. He's not going to keep losing weight. It doesn't work that way. Okay. He's going to lose to his ideal weight, then he's going to stick there, and you'd have to literally starve him, lock him in my barn and starve him for him to go under that ideal set point that his body wants him to be at. So that was question number one. So don't worry about losing too much weight on keto. A lot of people, when they lose down to their ideal body weight, they look skinny, too skinny to all their friends. And that's because all their friends are overweight, right?
But he may also find that he can indulge in a few more keto treats,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
have an extra spoon of cream in his coffee if that's what he enjoys.
But
so I would say.
But if he's a smart husband, he'll do so discreetly. Right? He won't just be stuffing the keto, like, look at all these keto cakes.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
So,
you have
and
your
again,
keto treat discreetly.
And he would tweak and see what happens. And if he just stays stable, then he can keep doing that. And if he's still losing, you get to where you want to be, and then you tweak to keep yourself there.
Right. And Kathy asked the question, I've talked about this before. I have no problem when somebody reaches their goal weight, if they want to branch back out into a paleo diet or an ancestral diet, I think, or a primal diet. I think that's perfectly fine. But the minute that you start to get inflamed, or the minute you start to gain weight, you know right where to come back home to.
So listen to your body.
Listen to your body. That's right.
So wait and see, are there any symptoms? Am I waking up with achy joints again? Am I, is my eczema coming back? Just listen to your body and see how you feel. Exactly. And if you've done something different and then you don't feel as good, then you go back. Right. And then you tweak until you are where you want to be weight-wise and you feel great.
Exactly.
And again, going back to the stigma thing, don't let anyone else tell you what your ideal weight is. Like, right. Be wherever you want to be, that it makes you feel happiest, then that's where you feel happiest.
Exactly. And then one more question that I think needs to be covered, I've seen a couple of times, is a person said they still have evening carb cravings. And I can personally speak to this. For months into keto, I did that. Nisha said that I turned into a carb zombie. About 7 or 8 p.m. every evening, I'd be in the kitchen rummaging around, and she'd be like, "What are you looking for?" I'm like, "I don't know." But then it dawned on me, I was carb craving. And so that was one of the perfect things. One of the things that helped me more than anything with that was we always had some good savory or sweet fat bombs, which is a keto treat. We always had a little, some kind of little 90-second bread or something like that. And eating that keto treat, instead of winding up grabbing the carbs that Abby Grace Berry had left on top of the fridge or in the cabinet, I didn't mess up my diet. And so those treats saved me from that evening carb craving for months and months. And now you guys may know I'm very, very fatty meat heavy, 95% carnivore. I don't have any sweet cravings whatsoever. We had a baby shower yesterday for one of my employees, and they had a cake, and they had chocolate covered strawberries. And I was over there eating my ribeye. I was totally happy. I didn't crave. I didn't want that. But I can tell you, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I would have been like, dude, I'm just going to get a little piece of that cake, just a little piece, not much. And, you know, doing the bargaining game with myself, like, I'll do some extra push-ups when I get home. But now I don't have those cravings, so we don't have a need to have those keto treats or the fat bombs in our fridge anymore. We don't need them. We're past that stage now. But when you're having a carb craving, that's vital to have that available.
So I want to toss something out of left field about carb cravings, because this is something I have just learned in the last few weeks. So those of you who know me know that what's coming is the J word, which is Jenny. So I have, in the last 3 weeks, so I was diagnosed with Lyme disease. So I literally have like living things running around in my body, right? I have had the most unbelievable carb cravings for the last few weeks, like almost addict level. And I, a billion years ago, I was alcoholic, so I understand what addiction feels like. I was just like an alcoholic that was desperate, and it has been like that for me for the last few weeks, while this Lyme disease is kind of really ramping up. So I just want to mention that if you have any kind of bacterial infection, if you have Lyme, if you have SIBO, if you have Candida, so this will be at the beginning of your keto journey. If you're one of those people who is like, I've been keto for a month and I still have carb cravings, nobody else has carb cravings, why haven't my carb cravings gone away? You might want to consider getting checked for Candida or Lyme or any other kind of bacterial infection, where the things that, I know this sounds gross, but the things that are living in you require sugar or stuff that turns to sugar when you eat it to survive. So I literally right now have spirochetes inside of me which are screaming for sugar. And that's been one of the hardest things about this Lyme, is the sugar cravings are absolutely unbelievable. And that has never been a thing for me until now. So that's just, and I'm not saying you can't excuse yourself if you're having carb cravings. It may or may not be that, but just bear in mind that it might be. Yep. And that may help you. I mean, if this is a thing for you, then of course, if you go and find out if you have Candida or Lyme or some other bacterial infection, knowledge is power. Then you can go get that fixed and the carb cravings should stop. For those of you, which is why you're having those carb cravings. A lot of you that might not be the reason. But for me, it's been unbelievably real these last few weeks, when the Lyme is kind of getting a bit out of control. So just thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I've seen numerous times in my clinic, I've had patients give me feedback that after they had a bronchitis or after they had a bladder infection and had to take a round of antibiotics, the carb cravings were much worse after the infection and after the antibiotics. And so because both of those things will mess with your gut bacteria, and any bacteria love sugar. There's no doubt about that. They have to have it. And so they can secrete substances in your body that'll make you carb crave. There's no doubt about that. And then if you have to take a round of antibiotics, which I hope you don't, but if you do have to, that's going to mess with your gut bacteria, which can also lead to a few weeks of carb cravings until you get your gut bacteria balanced again. It's good information, Carrie. Yes.
So if you're having what seems to be unnatural carb cravings compared to everybody else that you know or that you know online is keto, then it might be time to just go get that checked out to make sure there isn't some kind of bacterial infection going on that could be driving those carb cravings.
Yeah, it could be any number of medical things that are encouraging your body to crave carbs. Infection is one. If your insulin is out of the roof, that's another. If your cortisol's messed up, if your gut bacteria is messed up, all these different things can lead to carb cravings. And so, yeah, it might be a good time to go see a keto-friendly doctor and say, hey, check me out because I'm craving carbs, and either I wasn't doing that last month or I can't get over the carb craving, and everybody else in my family's gotten over it, and I'm still addicted to carbs. What's wrong with me? And I think that's a valid question to ask a doctor and get some lab work check and make sure everything's fine.
So, and people, some people said, okay, how am I dealing with it? And so I don't normally eat a ton of keto sweeteners, but I'm like, I got to get through this, and I've got to get through this without going off keto. Because for those of you who know me, I do keto for my brain, for bipolar 2 disorder. So going off keto is a really bad deal for me. So I have been just allowing myself to calm the cravings down by, I've been having, whipped cream with cocoa and some keto sweetener in it at night when the craving has been driving me absolutely potty. That's what I wouldn't normally do that, but right now I've got to do what I got to do to control that so I don't go off the ranch. I'm lucky in that as Dr. Berry knows, I live in the middle of nowhere. So, going, if the cravings get bad, I've got a 2-hour drive to go get something, and then all the stores close at 8. So, but that's what I've been doing to combat it. And for a short period of time, because I know that it's the Lyme, for a short period of time, if that's what I've got to do to just keep me till we get through to exterminate the Lyme, then that's okay. Not something I'd normally do, but I'm doing it now because I've got to get through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You do what you do to get through. Absolutely. Well, Carrie, this has been a blast. Any parting thoughts? And do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
So they can find me all over the place. I'm on, if you're watching this, then I think you should, yes, if you go to the top, you'll see my name and you can click on that. And so you'll find me, you'll find my Facebook wall. I'm on Instagram as The Real Carrie Brown. I'm on YouTube as The Real Carrie Brown. And my blog is carriebrown.com. I also have the KetoEvangelistKitchen.com and the Keto Evangelist Kitchen podcast and the Facebook group. So if you can't find me, there's something wrong.
Yes, I love it. You guys check out Carrie Brown. She has a bunch of cookbooks with delicious recipes. The best one of all is Sassy Goat ice cream. That's it.
Are you still dreaming about the Sassy Goat ice cream?
Yep. I am. I can't help it. Okay, Carrie Brown, thank you so much. We love you. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.